Hello everyone and welcome back to the practical series. Today we are going to see some fixed dose combination therapeutic problem prescription related to rheumatoid arthritis and diabetes mellitus. So today we will begin with rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is a systemic disease of unknown etiology. Okay, that is characterized by a symmetric inflammatory polyarthritis, extra-articular manifestations such as rheumatoid nodules, pulmonary fibrosis, serositis, scleritis, vasculitis, and serum rheumatoid factor in up to 80% of patient. Okay, rheumatoid arthritis, it is a systemic disease of unknown etiology. Okay, diagnosis is first one, that is clinical presentation. Most patients describe the insidious onset of pain, swelling in the hands and or wrist or feet. Synovitis may be evident upon exam of the metacarpophalangeal, proximal interphalangeal, wrist or other joints. Then rheumatoid nodules may palpate most commonly on extensor surface. Diagnostic testing. Rheumatoid factor may be positive in 80% of patients. Cyclic citrullinated polypeptide antibodies may be detected in 50 to 60% of patients with early rheumatoid arthritis. CCP antibodies are more specific for rheumatoid arthritis than the rheumatoid factor. Okay, CCP antibodies, they are more specific for the rheumatoid arthritis than the rheumatoid factor. Hand and wrist radiographs may show early changes of erosion or periarticular osteopenia. Goals of treatment. These include early suppression of inflammation in the joints and other tissue, maintenance of joint and muscle function and prevention of deformities, repair of joint damage to relieve pain or improve function. Moving towards classification of drug used in rheumatoid arthritis. First one is analgesics and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Okay, analgesic, they include acetaminophen and tramadol. NSAIDs are aspirin, ibuprofen, naproxen, ketoprofen, piroxicam, diclofenac, celecoxib. Okay, analgesic drugs like acetaminophen and tramadol. These drugs are used to relieve pain, but they do not reduce inflammation or prevent joint destruction. Okay, next are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which includes aspirin, ibuprofen, naproxen, ketoprofen, piroxicam, diclofenac, celecoxib. Okay, these drugs reduce pain and inflammation but do not slow joint damage. Okay, these drugs reduce pain and inflammation but do not slow joint damage. Okay, these drugs are used as adjuvant but are not usually the sole treatment for rheumatoid arthritis because they do not prevent disease progression. Okay, these drugs are used as an adjuvant but are not usually the sole treatment for rheumatoid arthritis because they do not prevent disease progression. NSAIDs work by inhibiting cyclooxygenase enzyme isoform, that is COX-1 and COX-2. COX-1 is expressed by many cells, whereas COX-2 production is usually increased at site of inflammation. Side effects with chronic use of NSAIDs include gastrointestinal irritation, rashes, fluid retention, and the potential for renal toxicity. The frequencies of NSAIDs induced ulcer can be reduced with concomitant use of PPI, okay, proton pump inhibitor or misoprostol, okay, along with NSAIDs in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis, we can prescribe proton pump inhibitor or misoprostol. The COX-2 inhibitor, that is celecoxib, seems to have a safety profile compared to other NSAIDs. Okay, moving towards our next drugs, that is anti-inflammatory drug with indirect analgesic action. The drug is glucocorticoids. Oral glucocorticoids at lower doses, example less than 10 mg of prednisolone per day, are often used to control pain, inflammation and stiffness. Okay, and they can potentially slow the progression of joint damage. However, because of the possibility of significant side effect, especially with long-term use at a high dose, glucocorticoids are most commonly used for short-term treatment or very active or aggressive rheumatoid arthritis, usually in combination with NSAIDs and DMARDs. They are often tapered with the disease is when the disease is under control. Okay, so our next drugs is, that is, disease modifying anti-rheumatoid drugs. These include methotrexate, sulfasalazine, chloroquine, Gould salts and leflunomide. Okay, DMARDs. These are the mainstay of treatment for rheumatoid arthritis. DMARDs retard the progression of bony erosion and cartilage loss. Okay, DMARDs retard the progression of bony erosion and cartilage loss. DMARDs are considered first line therapy for all patients with newly diagnosed rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, once a clinical response has been achieved with the use of DMARDs, the chosen drug is continued indefinitely at the lowest effective dose. Okay, once the clinical response is achieved with the use of DMARDs, the chosen drug is continued at the effective lowest dose to prevent the relapse. Okay, methotrexate typically is the initial choice for moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, hydroxychloroquine or sulfasalazine can be used as the initial choice in very mild rheumatoid arthritis. Methotrexate, it is a purine inhibitor and folic acid antagonist, and it is useful in treating synovitis regardless of the underlying disease process. Okay, methotrexate is administered orally once a weekly, starting with 7.5 to 10 milligram. Okay, it is administered once a weekly, starting with a dose of 7.5 to 10 milligram. Okay, clinical response is usually noted in 4 to 8 weeks. Okay, the dose can be increased by 2.5 to 5 milligram increments every 2 to 4 weeks to a maximum of 25 milligram per week until improvement is observed. Okay, contraindication, side effects of methotrexate. Methotrexate is a teratogenic and should not be used during pregnancy. Methotrexate long-term use is suspected to cause cirrhosis of liver and fibrosing alveolitis. Hence, it is bestly avoided in this patient with pre-existing liver disease and chronic alcoholics. Okay, folic acid supplement at a dose of 1.2 milligram daily may reduce its toxicity when it is given along with methotrexate. Our other agents are biological agents. These include TNF alpha blockers, interleukin-1 receptor antagonist, interleukin-6 receptor antagonist, T cell activation inhibitors, anti-B lymphocyte antibodies, tyrosine kinase inhibitor. Okay, biological agent, these are developed using molecular biological techniques. Use of biological agent is reserved for patient resistance to DMARDs combination. Okay, and the last one is immunosuppressants, that is azathioprine and cyclosporine A. Moving towards our first prescription, that is rheumatoid arthritis without joint destructions. Okay, now we will see the drugs used in rheumatoid arthritis without joint destruction. Okay, the drugs given are tab ibuprofen 300 mg TDS with food, tab omeprazole 20 mg once daily, tab methotrexate 7.5 mg once weekly, tab folinic acid 50 mg once daily for 1 month and follow up after 1 month. Okay, so the drugs given are ibuprofen, omeprazole, methotrexate and folinic acid for rheumatoid arthritis without joint destruction. Now we will see the prescription for rheumatoid arthritis with joint destruction. Okay, so the drugs given are tablet indomethacin 25 mg BD for 7 days, tab omeprazole 20 mg once daily, tab methotrexate 7.5 mg once weekly, tab folinic acid 50 mg once daily for 1 month. Follow-up is recommended after 1 month. So the drugs given are indomethacin, omeprazole, methotrexate and folinic acid. Moving towards the therapeutic problems. This is the therapeutic problem number 24 in your journals. I will read the problem. A 67-year patient was suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. He was prescribed tab acetyl salicylic acid. He felt better, but after a month of treatment, he complained of passing dark color stool. Okay, here the patient was suffering from rheumatoid arthritis and he was prescribed acetyl salicylic acid. And what was the complaint? He felt better, but after 1 month of treatment, he complained of passing dark color stool. Okay, so the first question is what could be the cause? Next is how will you confirm? And third is what advice will you give to the patient? Okay, moving towards our answer. The answer is the cause of passing dark color stool is GIT hemorrhage. Okay, acetyl salicylic acid inhibits COX-1 and therefore nullifies the gastroprotective effect of prostaglandin. Okay, acetyl salicylic acid inhibits COX-1 and therefore nullifies the gastroprotective effect of prostaglandins. Acetyl salicylic acid on long-term use causes erosive gastritis and peptic ulceration as it is irritant to the mucosa and destroys the epithelial cell. Bleeding occurs from ulceration leading to blood in stool. Okay. Confirmation can be done by stool examination and benzidine test. Okay. Confirmation it can be done by stool examination and benzidine test. Okay. Patient should avoid acetyl salicylic acid and take selective COX-2 inhibitor, that is celecoxib 20 mg BD. Okay, instead of aspirin, what we can give? We can give COX-2 inhibitor, that is celecoxib 20 mg BD. COX-2 inhibitors are preferred because their more specific activity is expected to control signs and symptoms of arthritis with less risk of causing gastrointestinal complications. Okay, gastrointestinal complications are less with celecoxib as compared with acetyl salicylic acid. Moving towards our therapeutic problem. This is the therapeutic problem number 29. Okay, a diabetic patient is stabilized on diet and tolbutamide 0.5 mg TDS. Okay, for upper respiratory tract infection, he was prescribed sulfaconazole 1 mg BD. Okay, here the patient is diabetic and he is stabilized on diet and tolbutamide. And for upper respiratory tract, he was prescribed sulfaconazole. Okay. Now the question is, would you come across any effect on blood sugar level of the patient? And second is, what alternative can be given? Okay, here the patient was taking tolbutamide and sulfaconazole. Okay, tolbutamide, it is an oral hypoglycemic agent belonging to the class that is sulfonylureas, and sulfaconazole, it is a sulfonamide. Okay, now this problem is mainly related to the displacement reaction, which we will see now. Okay, answer is first one, that is tolbutamide. It is a oral hypoglycemic agent belonging to the class sulfonylureas used to treat type 2 diabetes mellitus. Okay, sulfaconazole is a sulfonamide. Okay, when tolbutamide and sulfaconazole are given together, that is sulfonylureas and sulfonamides are given together, sulfaconazole displaces tolbutamide from the plasma protein binding site. Okay, resulting in increasing free form of tolbutamide in the plasma. Okay, when tolbutamide and sulfapenazole are given together, sulfapenazole displaces tolbutamide from the plasma protein binding site, resulting in increased free form of tolbutamide in the plasma. Action of tolbutamide is increased as it is displaced by sulfapenazole. Okay, there will be more concentration of tolbutamide. Action of tolbutamide is increased, resulting in hypoglycemia. Okay, decreased in blood sugar level. Okay, instead of sulfapenazole, we can prescribe amoxicillin. Okay, amoxicillin should be given as an alternative instead of sulfapenazole. Moving to the next therapeutic problem. This is a therapeutic problem number 22. The wife of a diabetic patient who was taking insulin injection observed whenever they go out for a long evening walk, while returning her husband gets tremors, sweats a lot, complain of palpitation, feels hungry and is not able to walk properly. Okay, here the patient was taking insulin and he was a diabetic. Okay, and he used to go for a longer walk, and after returning from a walk the husband used to get tremors, sweats a lot, complain of palpitation, feels hungry and is not able to walk properly. Okay, so our question is, can you reason out the likely cause why he was not able to walk properly, why he was getting the tremors, sweats a lot, complain of palpitation. Okay, and the next question is, what precaution in your opinion the wife should take to avoid the occurrence of this? Okay, moving towards our answer. The likely cause is hypoglycemia. Okay, tremor, sweating, palpitation are early symptoms of hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is due to the increase in the physical exertion and utilization of a glucose in the patient who was also taking insulin. Okay, here the patient was going for a longer walk, due to which the glucose was utilized, and also he was on insulin, due to which he result into hypoglycemia. Sugar should be given as soon as the attack of hypoglycemia occurs. The precaution taken should be, the patient should avoid vigorous exercise. Okay. Moving towards our next therapeutic problem. A primigravida in labor showing slow progress was brought to the labor room. Okay. The house officer on duty started an oxytocin drip at high rate of 60 drops per minute. Strength of the solution was 10 units in 500 ml of 5% dextrose solution. After about 35 minutes, the patient complained of excruciating pain in her abdomen. Her BP was low, skin was cold and clammy. Patient went soon in semi-comatose state. Okay, here the patient of primigravida in a labor room was showing slow progression. Okay, so the officer gave him oxytocin at a high rate of 60 drops per minute. Okay, but after 35 minutes the patient shows excruciating pain in the abdomen. Her BP was low, skin was cold and clammy. Patient went soon in semi-comatose state. Okay, so our question is, what could be the cause of her condition, and second, what precaution the medical officer should have borne in mind before starting the drip. Okay, moving towards answer for this therapeutic problem is, first one, the cause of her condition could be hypovolemic shock due to intrauterine bleeding caused by uterine rupture. Since the rate of infusion of oxytocin in drip was very high during induction, for induction of labor, oxytocin is administered by IV infusion. 5 units of oxytocin in 500 ml of 5% dextrose solution. Initially 0.1 to 0.2 ml of the solution should be given per minute. The rate is then gradually increased to maximum of 2 ml per minute. Before starting oxytocin drip, medical officers should rule out contraindication of oxytocin like cephalopelvic disproportion, unfavorable fetal position, uterine scare, and placenta previa. Okay, moving towards the next FDC, that is the combination of levonorgestrel 0.15 milligram or norethisterone 0.75 milligram plus ethinyl estradiol 30 microgram. Okay, rationale behind combination is progesterone inhibits the frequency of LH secretory pulses while estrogen inhibits the follicle stimulating hormone secretion. Okay, progesterone inhibits the frequency of LH secretory pulses while estrogen inhibits the FSH secretion. The combination of the two inhibits the mid-cycle LH surge. As a result, the follicles fails to develop and fail to rupture. So ovulation does not take place. Okay. Indication are contraception in women. One tablet is taken daily for 21 days starting from 5th day of the menstrual cycle. Postcoital contraception, endometriosis, dysfunctional uterine bleeding. Advantages of use of OC pills are regularization of menstrual cycle, decreased incidence of endometrial and ovarian carcinomas. Okay. Disadvantages include venous thromboembolism, especially in legs veins and pulmonary veins. Coronary and cerebral thrombosis resulting in myocardial infarction. Rise in blood pressure in 5 to 10% of the women is C. Increase in incidence of vaginal, cervical and breast cancer. Okay, these all are the adverse effects. Okay, drug interactions. When used along with enzyme inducers like phenytoin, rifampicin, metabolism of OCP is increased, resulting in failure of oral contraceptive pills. Okay, when these drugs are used along with enzyme inducers like phenytoin, rifampicin, metabolism of OCP is increased, resulting in failure of OC pills. Moving towards our next prescription, that is related to scurvy. First we will see what is scurvy. Okay, scurvy is a disease caused by a deficiency of vitamin C or also known as ascorbic acid. Okay, the deficiency leads to anemia, exhaustion, spontaneous bleeding, pain in the limbs and especially the legs, swelling in some parts of the body and sometimes ulceration of the gums and loss of teeth. Okay, the deficiency of vitamin C leads to anemia, exhaustion, spontaneous bleeding, pain in the limbs and especially the legs, swelling in some parts of the body and sometimes ulceration of the gums and loss of teeth. Okay, we will see the role of vitamin C. So what is the role of vitamin C? Vitamin C is needed for making collagen. Okay, vitamin C it is needed for making collagen, an important component in connective tissue. Connective tissue are essential for structure and support in body, including the structure of blood vessels. Okay. Next is a lack of vitamin C will also affect the immune system, absorption of iron, metabolism of cholesterol and other functions. Okay. Vitamin C is also needed for synthesizing dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine and carnitine needed for energy production. Okay, now this vitamin C, okay, it can we can prevent scurvy by eating the food which are rich in vitamin C. Okay, the food includes oranges, lemons, kiwi, papaya, tomato, strawberry, spinach and etc. Okay, risk of scurvy, it is more in people with chronic malnutrition, alcoholics, elderly, children's, patient on dialysis, malabsorption disorder. Okay, now we will see the drugs used in scurvy. Okay, so the drug given in scurvy is tablet ascorbic acid 500 mg per day. Okay, this is the adult dose for 15 days and follow-up is recommended after 15 days. Okay, moving towards our next prescription, that is related to night blindness. Okay, night blindness, it is a condition in which it is difficult or impossible to see in relatively low light. Okay, night blindness, it is a condition in which it is difficult or impossible to see in relatively low light. Okay, night blindness may exist from birth or may be caused due to vitamin A deficiency. Okay, vitamin A, also called as retinol, plays a role in transforming nerve impulses into images in the retina. Okay, so here the drug given is vitamin A. Okay, in night blindness we prefer vitamin A 1 lakh international unit orally OD for 3 days. Okay, supplement as and when required. Thank you all of you and take care.